Hello everyone, welcome back to the Lowland Greenhouse here at Carlton Carnivores. I've got another plant spotlight for you guys, and this time we are returning back to the southeast U.S. temperate butterwort group. I have covered several species in this group already, Cerulean, Planifolia, Pumila, but we've got perhaps the most familiar species in the group actually to cover today, the one that you're most likely to see in big box stores actually because it's very easy to propagate, and so it's very commonly sold there as maybe someone's first carnivorous plant that they find there. And that is Pinguicula primuliflora, the primrose flowered butterwort. And of course so named because their blooms are thought to look a lot like your common garden primrose flowers. Very similar structure, very similar kind of lilac-y color often. This is a species, much like the rest of its relatives. It is native primarily to the southeastern U.S., primarily in northern Florida, the Panhandle, and neighboring regions around there. This is probably one of the most water-tolerant species alongside Planifolia, although unlike Planifolia, which is actually adapted for actually becoming submerged, these guys have a slightly different growth habit. Now this species, the ones that I have here are actually a normal cross white-flowered plant, and currently the plant is producing flowers that is normal colored. We may see, if I were to cross it again, new white-flowered forms may come out of it. But these are relatively small at the moment. They can get quite a bit bigger, and I actually have the original white-flowered form here as well. It's not blooming currently at the moment, but you can see quite a bit bigger, and they can still even get bigger than this. Like all butterworts, it produces very broad, flat leaves, or mostly flat. This species in particular produces actually quite elongate, kind of narrow, ovular slash lanceolate leaves with slightly incurled edges like most butterworts, but where it grows out in kind of along creek sides and sandy seeps in the wild, these guys may actually grow sometimes right on the edge of the water and will actually grow out onto the water. So those incurled edges, if you grow it in much wetter conditions, the leaves will actually become flatter and spread out, and that allows the plant to actually float on top of relatively still water surfaces or slow-moving water surfaces. And what this species is also rather famous for is the fact that as they grow, older leaves, as they touch either soil or the water, will actually bud new plantlets off of the ends of those leaves. And those plantlets will stay attached to the original leaf of the parent plant, even the older dead leaves sometimes, and as such you can create these connected mats of plants that actually grow out over the surface of the water, thus keeping them afloat and allowing them to spread. Because when floods come through, the plants that are anchored at the edges of the stream stay put, and the ones that have grown out over the water may be washed down to a new location. So that allows them to spread in kind of a novel vegetative manner. Now this species, again, those long elongate leaves may produce a rosette that is anywhere between 3 and up to almost 8 inches across. And of course, if you get a colony going, that may eventually produce spreads that are a couple of feet in diameter. They are generally bright green in coloration, although under very strong light and on certain lineages, you may actually see the veins within the leaf, especially the midrib of the leaf, blush with red. Now that's only usually under very strong light. Most of the time, again, they tend to stay green. And in very late winter to early spring is when these guys tend to bloom. They will produce 1 to several consecutive stalks, and each stalk covered in little tiny glands, and produces a singular, maybe up to inch wide flower, usually around a ½ inch or so across, with 5 equally shaped, equally spaced petals around the mouth of the flower. Now, in the standard form of this species, those petals tend to be this very pale to rich lavender coloration and gives way to kind of a whitish central ring and then turns yellow in the actual corolla tube and the little tiny spur that sticks off the back. That yellow also sometimes has these kind of brownish veins that run through it as well. So very intricate, very interesting colorations when you look close at the flower. And of course, when you have 4 or 5 flowers off of each plant, and maybe you several dozen plants all together in a colony blooming, it can be quite an impressive display. So no wonder it's very attractive to grow, and because it's very wet tolerant, why it's so interesting for some people to grow as starter plants in big box stores and such. Now, these plants do require some specific details to grow them very well. First off is, again, they like wet soils, but those soils should be still somewhat relatively well drained. Pure peat actually does work pretty well because it actually drains pretty well. Otherwise, maybe a 1-to-1 peat to perlite or sand, or even up to almost pure sand mix these guys will grow in, as long as you keep it very moist. Again, these guys grow in stream banks or on the streams themselves, so you want to keep it at the very least a water table that is only just below the soil surface, or very, very regular watering so that it is actually very damp to almost wet soil, sometimes flooding even, so that these guys are happy. Now, you don't want to keep it constantly flooded in the soil because that will create anaerobic hypoxic conditions that can rot the roots out. So if you have them in a nice soil-filled pot, you do want to, if you flood them, allow that to dry out to just that general moist to wet condition. Again, get some air in there as well. These guys do prefer growing in fairly bright conditions, but they will tolerate a little more shade, like a lot of butterworts will. So it makes them very good for growing on a windowsill or underneath lights indoors. Still want to try and give them as bright a light as you can so that you get the best growth. And of course, if you have a variety that'll do that, those red blushes in the veins. And then of course, in winter is when you want to get them prepped for flowering. Now, as with most southeast species, these guys don't really like a lot of frost. They will tolerate light frost that go through. They do grow alongside American pitcher plants and such, Sarracenia. But if you want to keep them the healthiest, what's best is during the winter, give them conditions that drop temperatures down to maybe around 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit for 4 to 6 weeks. Give them at least bright light during that time still, but this allows them to go into kind of a semi-dormant period. They slow down a little bit, reset a bit, and then that gives them the signals they need to not only stay healthy through the next year, but it also gives them the signals that say winter is here, spring will be coming, and as soon as they warm up again, they will start to flower. Now, because these guys propagate via their leaves so easily, there's often not a whole lot of need for them to propagate in any other way. You often don't even need to take leaf pullings or anything to do anything. They will just propagate themselves. But if you are interested in pollinating these guys, the southeast U.S. butterworts do actually have the ability to self-pollinate. Most species, almost all that I have tried so far, will self-pollinate, but they do require manual self-pollination. Like most butterworts, they have their structures deep inside that corolla tube, right underneath the calyx of the flower, which is sitting right on the top here. You will have the stigma that hangs down in a flap, and then right behind that is the 2 anthers with the pollen on the ends. So what you want to do is get behind that stigma with like a toothpick or something, and many people will actually rip open the flower to be able to see that, and just scrape that pollen out, and then bring it around and deposit it on the front of that stigma. Now, if you have multiple lineages, you can cross-pollinate them for even better results, which is how I got these guys, because this is the typical crossed with the Blackwater River white-flowered form. And so, if you're successful with pollinating, the flower will wilt after a couple of days and a pod will form. The seeds that are within, it's best if you sow them directly as soon as they are ripe and the pod splits open. They are very tiny, brown, and kind of dust-like, and you just sow them on the soil surface. They will sprout within a week or two. But I have found also, contrary to some claims, these seeds will store cold in a fridge for several years at a time. Germination rates will tend to drop after about a year or so, but they will remain viable for, I've got some lutea and ceruleus seeds that I kept in the fridge for about 3.5 years and sowed them and got several seedlings out of it. So they will stay good for at least a few years with maybe 40-50% germination rates. But These guys, again, relatively easy to grow. They do want that cool period in winter, not cold, but very cool for a few weeks in order to do best. If you don't give them that period, you may not see flowers in spring, and you may also see after a year or two, a lot of them may simply collapse without warning. Oftentimes, if you take a leaf and set it aside, that will bud again, you can get restart. But the healthiest thing to do, of course, is give them that cool period so that all the plants stay healthy and you can keep the whole colony going. Now, again, there are several different varieties that are now available for these plants. You have the standard forms like these guys. The white-flowered forms are somewhat uncommon, but they are out there and you can get a hold of them. Or there is the double-flowered cultivar, Pinguicula rose, that is also out there. It has a bit of a richer lavender violet color to its flower as well, and double petals that make it quite unique among butterworts, because I don't think that same mutation has been seen yet in about any other species yet. So a few different varieties you can work with, and simply one of the easiest butterworts to start with growing, as long as you obey that. Keep it very moist, good bright light, and give it that little bit of winter cool down so that it stays healthy year after year. Now that is about all that I have for that species. Again, I have covered most of the other U.S. temperate butterworts already, once my luteas mature again, since I lost those a while ago, and flower. I will probably do a coverage of that. And if anybody knows a source for Pinguicula ionantha within Colorado, I would love to know, since that is the one species in the group that I do not grow at the moment. But if you enjoy educational videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the black bell so you don't miss other videos that are coming up. I will have other plant videos that are coming up. I'm also back to doing the wildlife videos for this year, so those will be interspersed as well. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave them in the comments below the video here. Like and share if you enjoy it. Watch the videos all the way through, because that really helps support the channel. If you'd like to learn more, you can visit my website at carltoncarnivores.com, where I have the database with files for all the different plants and animals that I like to study and read up on. I also have on my social media accounts, I'm always posting photos and video tidbits and such. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I'm also using PixelFed and trying out a couple other platforms. We'll see if those go on. But you can find stuff there. If you'd like to help support in a more financial manner, because making these videos does cost a bit, keeping everything up, the lights and the watering and so on, costs time and money. Consider I have a lot of plants available for sale at my website. The shop there has all sorts of stuff, as well as merchandise you can get. You can also become a supporter at Patreon, where members get early access to the videos, monthly seed contests, other merch bonuses, and so on. Or you can donate at Ko-fi, or contact me for other methods. But until next time, I'm Hawk and Carlton, and this is Carlton Carnivores.